I am so happy to have with me Michelle Karen. Michelle, can you please introduce yourself and tell a little bit about your passion in life?
Passions with an S.
Yes, passions.
I'm very happy, Heidi, to be here. Thank you for inviting me. I became an astrologer at the age of 14, and I have been doing this for many decades now. I have clients in over 72 countries. I've been giving conferences. I've written 10 books on astrology, yoga, living food, nutrition, and spiritual novels. And I became initiated by the Karo Master Shamans in Peru, where I have been going for the past 20 years. And they enticed me to start a shamanic school, which I have been teaching now for over, I don't know, 8, 9 years, 10 years, something like that. And and I contribute to a few magazines, newspapers. I give conferences all over the world. I live in Phoenix, Arizona, and Finland because I'm originally from Finland. My father was Finnish, my mother French. And what else can I tell you? I have also done some acting in Hollywood. I've been in several movies there. I'm the GPS, the voice of the GPS in Hondas in Canada. I have been a model for a while. That was completely out of character, but they just found me for some reason. And I have a YouTube channel now as Michelle Karen, astrologer shaman, that where I do astrological predictions on what's happening on a weekly basis and a lot more. So, but my main passions are astrology and shamanism. And I also offer mystical trips, mystical journeys to Peru, Egypt, Bosnia, Finland, Ireland. I've been to many places, but mostly Finland and Peru.
Amazing. Can you tell me a little bit about your journey, how to find your passion, uh, astrology and shamanism?
You know, that's a difficult question because when I look at what I've done, it's always been um, things I love to do, and I think finding your passion. I think a lot of people think that in terms of how much money they're going to make, and of course, we have practical considerations. We have to pay our rent, we have to eat food, we have to get close to, especially in Finland right now where it's so cold.
Mm.
But it's important to follow our bliss and to follow the things we love to do, the things that we would do. We don't necessarily do for money, we just do because we enjoy them, whatever it is, and make a career out of that. So I was, when I was 14, my father, who was a journalist, went to New York and he came back with Linda Goodman's Sun Signs. And I read this book, and to me, that was it. That's what I was going to do. And my parents thought this was a fluke. I was 14 years old, oh my gosh, she doesn't know what she wants and she's too young and that's not a job and etc. But what really got me was that I couldn't believe that somebody who had never met me could describe me better than people who actually were living with me,
Mm.
and that there was nothing wrong with me, that I was living according to my sun sign.
Mm.
And then when I started reading the sun signs of other people, I thought, oh my gosh, that's describing everybody to a T. There's something there. So I started studying on my own. I started researching it, and it became something I was so excited about. It naturally became a career.
Mm.
I guess I was lucky to find it so young, but I think everybody has something they're interested in. And if you start to follow the path of least resistance in terms of really focusing on what you truly love in your heart, that's truly your passion, somehow you're going to create the opportunity to make a living out of it. And which amazes me nowadays, people are making money with all sorts of crazy stuff, you know, an interest in language, an interest in dancing, an interest in whatever it is, and they end up creating careers out of that. And that's the way to go, really.
Yeah. It is interesting about astrology, and I have always, when I was little, I always uh, read about the signs in the newspapers, and sometimes it was, yeah, this is what's happening in my life, and and uh, and I have also seen that many things that is about my signs is is I can see that because I am Germany and I like to talk.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I have this podcast, and to meet people and to connect with people and to talk and to listen, and but I didn't understand how much it me uh, affected me about the to do it, because I had also, when I was little, I didn't want to talk so much. I was uh, closed up in a way, but I have understand that when I'm using my voice, then I'm more in my power.
Exactly. And that's the beauty of it. I mean, you were talking about, you know, predictions in newspapers. What you have to know is that it's not always accurate because first, it's not always written by astrologers to begin with,
Yeah,
and it's also um, you know, it's generalities because we have, based on our time of birth, place, and date of birth, we have a specific cosmic imprint, which is like the crystallization of a moment in time and space. So our sun sign is very important, but then we have to look at everything else, you know, our
yeah,
ascendant, moon sign, our Venus sign, and our planets could be placed in very different positions with regard to each other and how they are affected by the cosmic present movements is different for every Gemini or every Capricorn or every Cancer. But and that is determined on the base of who, you know, of each individual chart. So but there are some generalities, you know, that do apply to everyone of that sign at that moment in time. And that's why, you know, when I started my YouTube channel, I was wondering, you know, I wanted to do something that was deeper, more interesting than just predictions for each signs, because
mm,
again, that's generalities.
yeah,
And the way I personally use astrology is to see where the moon is at any given day and check, you know, what are the planetary influences of every day, because I think that's more interesting and everybody can tune in to that, whatever their sun sign is or whatever their natal chart is. They can tune into that to use it to enhance our activities, because it's a time, you know, there is a time for everything. And there
mm,
is also a time to rest, and there's a time to move into action. There's a time to do nothing. There's a time where it's good to ask for a raise. There's a time where it's good to, you know, travel or launch a new project, or get a date, or start a relationship, or move in with someone, or get married. So all these timings are very important, and we are in such a crazy world and life right now where everything is very fast paced, where we don't really take the time to align ourselves, and we often cannot even do that because of deadlines, because of obligations, because of financial restrictions, all sorts of obligations or duties that we have been that we have in our daily life. We forget how to connect to things that will make our life more flowing. And instead of going against the current, we can start to move with the current and still get everything we need to get done, respect all our obligations, all our duties, but at the same time, maybe wait an hour or 2 hours for the energy to shift so that we can get more traction in our projects and what we want to accomplish.
Yeah, that is so true. How can you, what have you seen in 2024? What is going to happen?
Well, 2024 is a very big turning point in our evolution because of one specific, there's several important aspects happening in 2024, but the most important one is Pluto entering Aquarius. And we had a little glimpse of that last year between April and June, or March. I think it was March and June. So it was just about 2 months and a half. But this year, it just entered actually yesterday, so the 21st of January, and will be there until the 1st of September. And then it will go back into Capricorn for 2 months and then resume and enter for good in Aquarius on the 19th of November, and will be there until 2042. So for the next pretty much 20 years. And that's a very important aspect because first, it's very long, and it is going to affect everyone, and it is going to change a lot of things in society. And what Pluto is a planet of power, is a planet very intense. It's a planet of major action coming from the depths of our subconscious. And Aquarius is a very humanitarian sign. It's really the sign of brotherhood, sisterhood, humanitarian endeavors, everything that has to do with cooperation for the good of all. And when Pluto comes into Aquarius, there's going to be many things starting to happen. First, I believe that the people are going to start speaking up because there's been more, and that was revealed by Pluto in Capricorn, who was in Capricorn since 2008. Actually, in the United States, exactly when Barack Obama got elected, that's when Pluto entered Capricorn. And during those last 2 decades, there's been a lot, a little less than 2 decades, but there's been a lot of corruption started to emerge, and especially at government level, at big corporations, big institutions. It became very obvious that the power was in the hands of a few people, and mostly very corrupt people all over the world. It was not just in one country, it was everywhere. And a lot of things started to emerge, and people became more and more conscious of the corruption, what was going on behind the scenes, what was happening at very high authoritarian level. And now that Pluto is entering Aquarius, I think there's going to be more and more civil unrest, and there's going to be more and more all over the world people starting to rebel and saying enough, that we have to take the power in our own hands because our governments are not necessarily representing the people and are not necessarily helpful to the people. So, what can we do at our level? How can we help each other? And I think there's going to be much more solidarity between people. There's going to be much more a sense of ownership and responsibility of how we cannot put our faith in big institutions. We have to start becoming masters of our own destiny, knowing what we want and asserting our needs. And another thing I see with Pluto and Aquarius, because Aquarius also has to do with the future, has to do with technology, has to do with, also extraterrestrial activity, that there probably is going to be more and more extraterrestrial activity. We're going to hear more and more of ETs. Like, for example, what we heard in that mall in Miami, that happened recently, what we heard about in that village in the jungle in Peru of the face peelers. There's going to be more and more, coming into a big audience consciousness of, other worlds. But also, there could be the dangers of AI, artificial intelligence, are also going to become very, very real. And I think we're already seeing that with all the, all those platforms where people can freely speak about anything they want, and can create a completely fake persona, a fake life, a fake everything, with filters, with renting a jet, to do a TikTok, whatever. So there is a lot of falsehood, and also plastic surgery, implants, all sorts of people trying to change what they are to look like an ideal of beauty, or an ideal of life, or an ideal of power, or an ideal of money, whatever it is. And that is also going to become a danger. And also, what are the limits of AI, because if we start to have robots that become so intelligent but are devoid of a soul and feelings and a heart, but their intelligence is so enormously developed, are they going to start taking over? Are they going to want to rule the planet? Are they going to want to exterminate humans? I mean, these are going to be very, very real questions that we are going to be confronted with in the next 20 years. So there is, but I really have hope in humanity, and especially in the spirituality of humanity, because we cannot recreate the dramas that happened in Atlantis, or, I mean, even though history does tend to repeat itself, but we also have to take lessons from the past and know that technology cannot become more powerful than our humanity and our divinity. And that's also something else that is, that people now, most people don't have any faith. They don't go to church. They don't believe really in anything. And they believe, they can do whatever they want and there's no consequences. Well, there are consequences to every action. There are things that we have to be accountable for. Everything, all the choices we make, all the decisions we make, all the thoughts we have, all the emotions we have, we need to be accountable for. And I think that this is a time where humanity needs to wake up to its humanity. And Aquarius, if you look at the symbols, I know, Heidi, you're a Gemini. Well,
Yeah.
a Gemini is one of the three signs that are represented by humans. So you have Gemini represented by the twins, so the two, and then you have Virgo represented by a Virgin, and then you have Aquarius represented by a full-blown man pouring water, which is a water of knowledge. And that's interesting because if we look at the zodiac, that out of 12 signs, we only have 3 human signs and one that's half human, the centaur, which is actually a mythical, character, half man, half horse, and that's for Sagittarius.
Mm.
All the rest are animals, except of course for Libra, which is an object, as the
Yeah.
scales. But all the other signs, Aries, Taurus, Cancer, Leo, Scorpio, Capricorn, and Pisces, they are all, animal signs. So, and it's interesting that Pluto is now entering in a human sign,
Mm.
because I believe this is now the time to become the great human, the noble man that the I Ching talks about. Now is
Mm.
the time to become masters. Now is the time to stop believing that somebody is going to save us, that the government is going to help us, that some savior is going to fall from the sky and redeem all our sins and everything will be happy ever after. That it's not the time for that anymore. Now it's a time to become fully human. Now is the time to become fully masters of our own destiny, to be accountable for everything we think, we feel, we do, our actions, and how we interact with the world around us. The ecology, nature, other people, how we help each other, how we support each other, and most of all, how we lead by example.
Mm.
And that we have, our right hand has to know what our left hand is doing. We cannot lie to ourselves. We cannot be oblivious to parts of ourselves and hope that nobody will notice or nobody will see that, because eventually it will come back and bite us, and we will have to do something about it. And if
Mm.
it's not in this lifetime, it will be in another lifetime, but it is going to come back to us in one way or another.
Yeah. Interesting what you have seen for this year and also for the 20 years. And it is scary that that we have the IE and all the things that is happening in the world. But also it is good to see that the humans finally start to stand up for it themselves.
And I think, fear is very prevalent right now. A lot of people are living in the fear of World War III, of AI, ETs, I mean, everything unknown that we feel we cannot control.
Mm.
And I understand that. But, the truth is, there's only two real feelings in life. It's fear or love,
Yeah.
period. And when we give in to fear, we have forgotten to be in our hearts. We have
Yeah.
forgotten to be in our love. And if we can start to love more, first of all, love ourselves, because I think, if we need to create all that fake life or that fake image of ourselves, it's because we don't truly love ourselves. And then that's maybe where we should begin. Let's start loving ourselves. Let's start putting order in our own life. Let's start being aware of ourselves and bettering ourselves, without resorting to plastic surgery or filters or whatever it is. Let's, start to acknowledge who we are and work with that,
mm,
because it doesn't matter where we're starting from. If we can be a more loving, better person, that's going to embellish us more than makeup or surgery or filters, you know. So it's important to not give in to fear, because I know it's so strong right now.
mm,
Everybody's afraid of something, afraid of not having enough money, afraid of losing their job, afraid of war, afraid of not having love, not finding their right partner, not being good enough, not whatever, you know.
yeah,
And and let's start focusing on the things we do love, you know, on the things that make us happy, the things that enhance our life, enrich our life. And the more we'll start focusing on the glass half full, the more full the glass is going to be. Because man, and that's an Indian saying, man is a creature of reflection. Whatever he focuses on, he manifests.
mm,
So if we, and especially now, you open the news, you open newspapers, it's just problem after problem after problem. And people either give in to that darkness, or start to become, you know, to escape into a world of complete creation that has nothing to do with any kind of reality.
mm,
And that's dangerous too.
mm,
Both are dangerous. You know, we need to, we cannot be oblivious to what's going on in the world, but we don't need to give power to things that are not helping us, are not enriching our lives, are
mm,
not making us feel, you know, more hopeful about the future. And we need to trust that, yes, there are dangers that we need to be aware of. That's
mm,
important. But at the same time, we have individually power to shift our focus so that at least in my world, things are good and happy. And my world will have a ripple effect on the world and will
yeah,
start to affect other people in a positive way. So one thing I would say, ditch your TV for to begin with, you know, stop watching the news, you know. The important things we will end up knowing about them anyway, but don't, you know, I feel terrible, you know, people don't have enough sleep and then they wake up in the morning, they have to rush to get to work. They
mm,
drink their coffee, read the newspaper, listen to the news, and then they're on their way to work. They don't like their work, but they have to be there. It's boring, and then they come home and they're exhausted, and then they watch a little more TV and a little more brainwashed, and maybe they drink a glass of wine to unwind, and then they go to bed. And you know, I mean, it becomes a sort of thing where we are enslaved by a reality that doesn't allow, you know, or doesn't give room to good things. And we
yes,
need to create times where that are going to be good, you know, where maybe on the way to work, on the bus, on the train, maybe we read a book that enhances our lives or make us feel hopeful about life, you know, or we learn something that's going to enable us to get applied to a better job and maybe make more money in a way where we don't have to work so much, or we start to develop a passion of some sort, or we start to, you know, to start, and maybe instead of drinking our coffee in the morning, we drink a herb tea, you know,
mm,
maybe instead of having a glass of wine, we do some yoga or some exercise, you know. So it is about finding ways, little ways in which, without dramatically changing our life, we can still start to implement little things in our lives that are going to make us more hopeful, that are going to make us happier, that are going to make us focus on the things we do want and not the things we don't want.
mm,
And that's how I think Pluto in Aquarius is encouraging us to do that and to start creating different realities for ourselves within our present circumstances, because I know we don't all have, you know, the luxury to go and live in Bali or stop working altogether.
mm,
Um, but there's still little ways in which we can do nice things for ourselves. Or even a simple way, you know, like this beautiful china we reserve to that special guest. Well, start eating in that china every day. You know, that beautiful dress you reserve for a beautiful party that maybe never comes. Well, start wearing it when you're alone at home for
Yeah.
yourself, just to feel good, you know,
Yeah.
and do little things like that that are very simple and that we don't always think about, and yet which are going to enhance our lives in ways that will make us radiate joy and happiness in a way that's just going to be a ray of sunshine in an otherwise rather bleak reality. But it doesn't need to be bleak all the way and for everyone and all the time either.
That's so true. And I love that what you say, that it is, you have fear or you have love. And that when you are starting to take care of yourself and do the little things, then you live in that world. And for me, I stopped watching TV and news, especially 8 years ago.
Good for
And
you. And
because
how did
it,
it change your life? How did that change your life?
I don't have that fear. I it was uh, it was I felt like, why are we watching this? Because it always made me feel terrified, and
Mhm.
I felt it in my body that I was scared. And when I started to do not watch that at all, then I started to relax more in my body. I started to focus more about having a good life.
Mhm.
Yeah,
And I love that, Heidi, because that's really what Pluto in Aquarius is encouraging us to do now is find what makes your life better and focus on that. And
yeah,
it's also time to let go of toxic relationships, you know. So there are some relationships, even if they are toxic, we cannot really change, you know, family members, and okay, we're stuck with those. But maybe we can, you know, interact with them a little less or engage with them a little less, or when they start to go in their dramas, we just stay a little neutral with regard to that, and we don't start to, you know, respond or defend ourselves. And we start to choose our friends more wisely. We start to choose our films more wisely. We start to choose our books more wisely, the activities we engage in more wisely. And the more we start to make positive choices in our own life that enhance our life, we are going to feel better. And
mm,
then in reflection, that's going to affect also the people we come across. And those people who are negative, or those people who want to stay in their dramas, they won't be so attracted to us anymore.
yeah,
So they will sort of remove themselves from our lives very naturally, which is the best possible manner in which it can happen.
it is. I wanted to talk a little bit about shamanism also, because that was how we met, and that is how I have taken your uh, education, what I am really recommending, and 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 for me it is that I felt like one piece got in place because I am searching. I'm a searcher. I'm a really curious person, and when I find you, it was so many things that happened, many transformational things when you use the medicine wheel. Can you tell a little bit about that and what you are doing in your education?
Yeah, thank you so much, Heidi. Yeah, my shaman school. So when we talk about the medicine, we're talking about the medicine wheel. And the medicine wheel, we're not talking about ayahuasca or stuff like that, because that I do not do at all. And the Karos who initiated me from the Karo tribe in Peru do not use ayahuasca, San Pedro, any plant, herb, any of that. And it's not necessary. It really isn't. Because if we do our work on ourselves correctly, we are going to go very naturally through a transformation that absolutely does not require any drug, because really they're drugs. Even if they, people have, awakenings with that, it's really, I don't recommend it at all. I've never done it, I never will, and I don't recommend it. So the medicine wheel, so first of all, I was initiated by the Karo Master Shamans after a head-on train collision in the jungle over 20 years ago. And they started showing up in my life, and they started bringing me places, and all sorts of crazy stuff would happen. They would push me. I would get pushed under a waterfall, and there was nobody there. And then I felt I was getting annihilated from humanity. And then I slept for 2 weeks, and I was going in and out of incarnation. I mean, there were all sorts of really interesting occurrences. And and gradually they started teaching me healing techniques, very ancient healing techniques, and they're the ones who pushed me to start the school, which I was never in a million years thought I would ever do, but it just happened. And the medicine wheel is really goes for the Keros through 4 stages. So we start in the south, and in the south we let go of all the cultural pieces, all the things, where we identify, we're Finnish, we're French, we're American, we have, or Norwegian in your case,
Yeah.
we have like those cultural things we are born in that we don't even realize. Like the French speak a lot with their hands, for example, or the Americans are very positive about everything, and it's not a good thing to say that you're not having a good day. You're supposed to say you have a good day even if you have a horrible day. The Finns don't talk. I mean, there's like all sorts of cultural things that we do without even realizing that this is acquired. It's a conditioning, but it's not necessarily who we are as a soul and who we are as in our essence. So in the self, we start to recognize that, and to work on that, to start transforming that, so that we can still be very French, very Finnish, very Norwegian, very American, but we also recognize that this is, something we do, but it's not our essence. It's not our soul. That doesn't define us. And then when we get to the West, we start to learn about our personal conditioning, family conditioning, our education. Every family has little quirks, little things that they do. There are like certain things that are carried over from generation to generation that nobody questions. And yet, if you come from a different family, it will be like a strange habit or a strange way of being. And then when we get to the north, and also in the west, we learn to we become friends with death. And I know death is not a very popular topic, particularly in Finland, but I think nowhere people are really afraid of death. And yet, as a shaman, death is our ally, and it's not something to fear. It is a transformation, because if we think about it, every night when we go to sleep, we die to our day, and we are reborn in the morning. And we slip into another reality when we sleep, and then we come back to this reality. So there is this element of learning to be to be okay with death, to not think it's something bad, you know, on the contrary. Death defines life also. Like light defines darkness, darkness defines light. So it all goes together. We have to die to be reborn. So all of this is part of the cycle. And then when we get to the north, that's when we reach the mythical aspect of life, the place of prophecies, the place of stories, legends, you know, those things that the journey of the hero that is bringing us to from an ordinary life to an extraordinary life. And then when we finally get to the east, Eagle Condor, that's a place of enlightenment. That's a place where all the stories dissolve. And ultimately, the goal of the shaman is to recognize our shadow, to recognize our conditioning, to recognize our lineage, but also to become transparent so that we don't start to project all our dramas onto everybody else. We start to be able to see the world as through the eyes of a child with wonder, as if it were the first time, that we have the consciousness of walking in beauty, choosing our battles, but also having the understanding of seeing everything for the first time with wisdom, but with also without prejudice, without you know, any preconceived idea that limits our perception of what is in front of us. So when we go through the medicine wheel, we are working on ourselves. And as we go through those different stages, we're also learning different, you know, different techniques, healing techniques. And we're also receiving rights, and those rights are going to transform. And this is given from a, you know, an initiated shaman to somebody who is receiving the teachings. It's going to change the way we age. It's going to change the way we die. It's going to change the way we approach life. We are receiving seeds that are going to shift us at even a DNA level, and in such a way that we are not going to go through the ups and downs of life the way regular people do. You know, we're going to be in the world without being of the world, meaning that we are able to participate in what is going on in the world and be a full-blown member of society, but we are not allowing ourselves to get affected by external circumstances because we know we are masters of our own destiny. We know we can slow time. We know how to work with our dreams. We know how to understand our dreams. And we become fully integrated in all the parts of ourselves in such a way that we are able to connect to our truth, to our essence, to who we really are at a soul level.
It is so, it is it's such a great transformation that is happening when you are doing the whole medicine wheel. And I'm so happy that I have taken that with you, and I can recommend it to everybody that is feel called to do it. Have you something that you want to say to the people that has listening today? Some last words?
I think really be happy, be positive. You know, when people say, I hope the future is going to be good, I say, don't hope, trust. Because when we hope, it's like, it may happen, it may not happen. But when we trust, we don't know how it's going to happen, but somehow we trust that the outcome, we have faith in a positive outcome. And I honestly have a lot of faith in the future because there's also amazing children being born right now, and I cannot wait to see what those kids who are being born now with Pluto in Aquarius for the next 20 years, how they are going to change society, because every generation brings a new level of evolution, and it's going to be very interesting. Like, for example, those kids who came with Neptune in Aquarius, they are wizard in music. They're incredible. They use technology in ways that they are it's like music is coming out of their ears, and they're creating compositions that are extraordinary with very simple means, and yet they're geniuses in their own right. It's absolutely amazing how they are functioning. So what I would really say is that it's important to stay as positive as possible, you know, and follow your bliss, because it's our bliss that brings us to the life we really want. And don't, you know, choose people in your life who are happy, positive, enriching, people who enhance your life, who make you feel better about yourself, and who support your best interests, and who want the best for you, and for whom you want also the best. And if we can all focus on happiness, because it's interesting, you know, when you ask people what they want in life, it's not always, of course, people want more money, want this, but basically people want more happiness. And happiness is a big motivating force in life. You know, why do we get engaged to someone? Why do we get married? Because we hope, or we trust, or we believe we are going to be more happy being with this person than being alone.
Mm.
Why do we, you know, get, you know, if we choose, we go on vacation because we think that place is going to make us happier than in our normal environment? Why do we go out and even have a coffee and a cake? Because we think that's going to make us more happy. You know, it's going to be a little sunshine in the day. So happiness is actually a very important factor, and we should be happy. We should focus as much as we can on happiness, even if we still have obligations, duties, responsibilities, and all those things. But it's also trying to find the happiness in the middle of all that. You know, the difference between a cashier who has a boring job, hates her job, and the cashier who takes an interest in her job and tries to find something to be happy about in her job. Well, probably people will want to, you know, go to that cashier rather than to the one who doesn't treat clients very well because she hates her job, or he hates his job, you know, or is just bored to tears, instead of finding something interesting to even if it's not the most exciting job in the world, there's always something exciting we can find in little things. And that's what we should focus on more and more. And if more and more people do that, the world will be a better place.
Oh, thank you for this amazing words in the end, and thank you so much for being a guest in my podcast, and that we finally got the time to do it.
Thank you, Heidi, for inviting me. I really appreciate that. And for your patience, because I know this has been, you asked me like 2 years ago, I think. So it's been like long coming. So thank you very much.